then I'm going to need to close.
Were you intending to button your shirt?
I don't know. Nah.
Dun, 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 dun.
All right, I think we're live as far as I can tell. Hey, everybody. Good to see y'all tonight. It's 7 o'clock. So we are glad that everybody out there in Cross Park land is joining us.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, it's Jordan and Jeff again, because we're still on lockdown.
Woo-hoo.
Yes. Here we are.
I talked to somebody earlier today, and they said they've been about, 75% of the people they've been talking to knew the number of days they were in quarantine for. I was like, wow.
Whoa.
That's impressive.
That's very specific.
Yeah.
So I don't even know what day it started. I
don't even know what day it is.
Fair enough. And I know my kids, the last day of school for my kids was March 13th, but that's Claire's birthday. So that's kind of easy to remember.
Mm-hmm.
But so I think the 15th, March 15th was the first Sunday we missed. I'm pretty sure.
Yes. Yep.
At Smithfield. And here we are. My computer says it's the 30th, April 30th. Man.
It's a long time.
You going stir crazy at all?
I kind of am. I'm starting to, at first I loved it, because I'm, slightly introverted. I'm kind of like right on the scale.
Yeah.
And so maybe love it is a little strong, but I enjoyed the slowdown, but now I'm starting to go a little crazy.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm more on the extrovert side of things, but I still enjoyed the change of pace. I think I'll talk a little more about that even later tonight, maybe, but yeah. I'm glad North Carolina has said that we're going to be reopening in phases, and it seems like we don't know. None of us really know what the best way to do it is, but it seems like, for me at least, it's holding out hope that hey, here we go. We're on the way. I saw today, Roy Cooper said, we don't know for sure, but we feel hopeful that the May 8th date, we could start phase 1 of the reopening. Yeah. So I'd be all for that. That'd be fun to me. So here. Well, again, welcome everyone. We're glad all of you joined us here for Live from Life and Lockdown Part 3 with Jeff and Jordan. We may turn this, the alternate title of this is the Pastoral Pandemic Podcast.
Ooh.
You like that?
I like that a lot.
It's 3 points. It's all alliteration. It's like my sermons. So
can't lose.
Can't go wrong with and P is the best word for alliteration. For Bible,
absolutely.
Sermon, alliteration, P, provision, protection, power,
propitiation,
propellers, you get all sorts of propel fitness water, providence is nice, right? Provenance, even Provence. You've got lots of P words that might make it into a future sermon. Well, guys, what we're doing tonight, we're glad you joined us. We're doing an all lockdown, all mailbag edition of the Pastoral Pandemic Podcast, meaning we didn't prep any material of our own. We're only trying to respond to questions that were sent in to us. So last week and via our other communication avenues, we elicited questions from you. We solicited you to get questions, thus eliciting them from you. And Aaron Martinson, our awesome administrator, put them together and sent them to us. We had a lot of questions. So for mostly for time reasons, we had to sort of cut some of the questions. So if your question didn't get on here, we're sorry. We don't know who sent them to us. So part of the fun here is that at the end of the night, we're going to pick 2 of our favorite questions and award some prizes. So Erin is going to join us at the end of our podcast, and she will tell us who sent in our favorite questions, and then she'll tell them what they won. So in light of all that, Jordan, are you ready for another episode?
I am ready. Had I known there were prizes, I would have submitted a question myself.
That would have been great. I know. Yeah, I guess I didn't really tell you that. I feel like we should have a little theme song right now or something.
We really need one.
We good. Well, maybe Will. Hey, Will. Something to do this week extra, buddy. You don't, because you're not busy enough with being our new tech guru and making all the. Will's doing a great job, by the way. If you're a Cross Park person and you've been enjoying the Sunday digital service stuff we've been sending you, Will Milks has really been the genius behind making that all work. And as you've noticed, they get better every week because Will has continued to work on that. It's funny.
Yep.
I don't know if you thought about this, Jordan. So before the lockdown, we were actively and still are actively looking and thinking about facilities, which we'll talk about a little bit tonight. And so we went and met with some of our friends at Forest Hill who have a campus at the Morrison Y in Ballantyne. And they were talking about AVL, right? Audio visual lighting. And so we kind of joked, well, at this point, we're mostly just an A church. We don't have a lot of video or lighting. And ironically, since this has all happened, you and I have been downloading apps on our phone to help with the audio and the video and the lighting.
Yeah. At the time we were like, what is AVL?
And I was like,
we know now.
Isn't that okay? Trivia question. Do you know what AVL is? A different, it actually is it stands for something else other than audio, visual, and lighting.
This is 3 in a row.
I know. I've got another one for you later tonight.
Great.
I'm pretty sure it's the official Asheville Airport 3-letter code.
Wow.
So, yeah, you can take that to the bank. All right.
Never flew in there.
I haven't either. Let's start talking. We got some fun questions to get us going. We all know that sports are no more for the foreseeable future. So one of the questions we had was, what sports do you miss watching the most? I think I know what your answer has to be. It has to be the Masters, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, man, I think Sunday night I rewatched last year's Masters final round.
Was that
so?
Did Tiger win?
Tiger won. Tiger won. Yeah.
I think I fell asleep watching that in New York City last year on Sunday afternoon.
You can't fall asleep watching Tiger win the Masters.
Well, you wouldn't think so.
You wouldn't think so.
I'm able to. Actually, my sister-in-law this week sent out a video of some stuff from Christmas, just like, videos and photos that she had compiled. And they're panning around the room, and some people are talking, and some people are playing this game, and some people are playing that game, and some people are watching football. And then they pan to me, and I was asleep snoring on the couch. To be fair, it was a Sunday afternoon. I just preached, so we'll cut that.
That'll do it.
Any other sports you really miss right now?
Yeah, basketball. Obviously March Madness, but the NBA too. Walker and I watch a fair amount of NBA games. So
the NBA playoffs are pretty great, I gotta say.
They are.
I'm still holding out hope that maybe they'll do something.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm kind of skeptical at this point.
Today, the theory I heard today was they could quarantine all the playoff teams at Walt Disney World Resort and just play them like nobody leaves and they just play there. I don't know.
Wow, that would be impressive.
Yeah.
So, been watching The Last Dance. It's not quite a substitute, but
no, not quite.
It's been enjoyable.
It's good. Yeah, I missed March Madness, but March Madness also isn't quite what it used to be. As college basketball has declined a bit. It's still fun, but it's not what it used to be. Okay, so I don't know how much takeout you're getting, but I'm sure you're getting some. We all are. Yeah. If you could only have one takeout restaurant open for the rest of the lockdown, what would you choose?
Roosters, South Park.
Yes.
Man, the barbecue chicken there. I could just drink the barbecue sauce just straight up.
Delicious.
And John Martinson. Thanks to you, I have some.
Yes. Have you been drinking it?
Occasionally.
Occasionally. I think I'd go with Viva Chicken, not quite as highbrow, to be fair, but it's basically across the street from my house. So the ease of picking up Viva Chicken is quite nice. Yeah. Okay. What is your favorite Chronicles of Narnia book?
I have a feeling we might be the same on this one. Okay. The Dawn Treader.
Yeah, the same. Why is it?
Can't beat it.
No, you can't. I mean, why is it your favorite?
Well, first of all, I love the picture of Eustace becoming a dragon, and then the kind of imagery of repentance cutting all the way deep down, all through all the layers.
Yeah, it's excellent.
I mean, that whole transformation is incredible, and then the ending.
The ending. I mean, it's hard to beat an ending for a book, especially. I mean, it's a kid's fantasy book, but
Yeah.
the vision, right, of delight
Mhm.
in being welcomed into Aslan's country for Reepicheep is just fantastic.
It
Yeah,
really
I
is.
totally agree with you. Okay, favorite board game, either now or at any point in your life?
I'm not a huge board game guy. Full disclosure.
Try
That
not to
might
hold
not
that
make.
against you.
I might not be a real Christian, but categories. I like
Oh,
categories
it's a
and
quality game.
taboo, catchphrase, those sort of games where you have to kind of think on your feet real quick. We have a sort of Haiti tradition for our teams where we play a lot of catchphrase. Kathy
Nice.
Culbertson, you know what I'm talking about.
Excellent.
So I'm a little bit competitive.
Yeah.
And have been in those. Yeah. So how about you?
We've been playing a lot of Seven Wonders, which is a new game to us. I really like it, but I stink at it, apparently. I thought I was good at it, and recently I have been disabused of that notion entirely. I pretty much come in last every time, it seems, at this point. We play every day at lunch, and I come in last almost every time. As a kid, my favorite games were either Trivial Pursuit or Stratego. Do you remember that game?
I don't remember that game. The reason I'm laughing is because my wife may or may not be dancing to make me laugh right now.
Ah, well,
True or false?
True. We'll come back to the dancing question perhaps in a minute.
I might just turn the camera on her and then she'll really regret that.
She would probably.
But I don't know that game. I don't know Stratego. Sorry.
It's kind of like a capture the flag game, but it's military strategy. There's there are bombs and generals and field marshals. It's great.
Nice.
Okay, some slightly more serious questions. What currently living theologian would you most want to have dinner with?
Sinclair Ferguson. But slight tweak, I'd like to play golf with him rather than have dinner.
Ooh, that is a nice tweak. I like that.
He does golf.
I hear that. I probably, until recently, would have answered Eugene Peterson, but he has gone to be with the Lord. So I also really like Sinclair, or even Tim Keller. I mean, in some ways,
that's a good one.
Tim Keller isn't particularly seen as a theologian, but of course he is. He shaped a lot of people's thinking about the Bible and the gospel. And, I think that we may have a chance, possibly. Sinclair is teaching a class in Charlotte next winter that I'm planning
I
to
didn't
take.
know that.
Yes, so we may have an opportunity to have lunch or something with Sinclair, so we could actually have that one answered. That could be fun. All right, if this is a great question, if you could relive 1 year of your life again with no changes, what year would it be and why?
That is a great question. The no changes part is the tough one, right? Because I want to go back and change things, but probably senior year of college or first year of marriage.
Okay.
Depends on who you ask. First year of marriage for me was great. Evan may have occasionally cried herself to sleep, but
you had no idea she wasn't having the time of her life.
Nobody puts baby in the corner. Senior year of college, I'm going to go with, because that's the year that we started seriously dating, got engaged. Just an all around great year.
Okay, fascinating, because mine is basically the same thing. The year that I met Trish, so we had both gone to East Asia with Campus Crusade for Christ, and we had met in the process of getting ready to go. Okay. And so we started hitting it off a little bit because our parents lived in the same area that summer. But we lived for a year as missionaries in a really, really different place than what either of us were used to. And it was a great year of ministry. Yeah, we fell in love. We got engaged. We had a great team. Fell in love further with that part of the world. So yeah, isn't that interesting? I mean, it's hard to beat. I'm sure. The year you fell in love, right, with your spouse, it's hard to beat that. I would say.
Hard to beat that. Those memories and that experience, right?
Yeah. Okay. So you can pick between these two, whichever one is better. Either the story of the first time you saw your spouse or your first date. Which one of those is a better story?
I'm going to go with first date. So at Elon, they had this sort of, in hindsight, lame dance, because it was not for the fraternities or sororities. Whoever was not in one, they had this dance called, and it was a winter dance, the Snowball.
Ah,
pretty clever title there.
Very clever.
So I asked Evan my freshman year to the snowball, and there may or may not be pictures of that.
Ooh.
I look rather frightening, but
If we could track those pictures down, Evan, if we could track those pictures down, I'd be willing to show them on a future episode of the
I'm
show.
sure you would. I'm sure you would. But yeah, it was fun.
Does she think it was fun?
We didn't start dating afterwards, so I guess maybe not.
Not as much as you thought it was.
Not as much as what was yours?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go. Our first date's kind of tricky because it's a little hard to know when it was because we sort of weren't dating, but we were interested. So I'm gonna tell this. We have a disputed story about the first time we met. So we had some mutual friends who were trying to set us up before we ever met, and I was interested in somebody or dating somebody. So I just politely said no thanks. You know, I'm already whatever chasing somebody. And so Trish was a senior at UNC and I was on staff with Crusade. And so she came up to me one night after the big large group meeting to introduce herself to me. And her recollection is that I was rather self-important and dismissive.
Ooh.
I can't imagine that would be the case.
Hard to imagine that.
No, I mean, come on. Pretty girl walks up. At a minimum, I'm going to be friendly, but she insists that I was very focused on being important staff guy and didn't really pay her a whole lot of attention. So yeah, it wasn't, there weren't bells and whistles and rainbows and unicorns at that exact moment in our story. So we had to wait a little longer for that.
How much longer?
Well, so that was the fall of her senior year.
Okay.
And really it was that next summer that we started heading towards East Asia and so forth. So, I mean, it wasn't, like years later or anything.
Yeah.
But I noticed her more after that, I must say. Okay, if you could take a trip, travel anywhere in the world, could be far away or not, where would you go? What would you
do? At some point, I want to take my whole family to Haiti. Bit of an adventure to get there, and we have some food issues in our family. So not the easiest place for us to all go, but I would love to do that.
Do the food issues relate to goat at all? Because that's
welcome to my house. 4 kids and 2 dogs. No, I think goat would be good for everybody.
Probably would, actually.
Whether or not it's good is a question, but
that's always the question.
Yes. Other than that, I would pick France.
Okay.
Oh, nice. Knox, I did tell Knox he can make an appearance.
Say hi. Hey, Knox. Everybody say hi to Knox. Noxy, there he is. See, buddy. Yeah, for me, I think, so part of the story is that Trish was originally applying to go to the south of France with Crusade, and because she minored in French, that team was way too full. And so they asked her if she'd be willing to go somewhere else. So she said Asia. So I would love to take Trish to the south of France, or my other option would be, I'd love to take my whole crew to China and to a particular town called Lijiang that I love in China. And it's kind of this medieval town, and it looks much like it did 600 years ago. And it'd be fun. Awesome. It'd be fascinating.
Yeah. Evan lived in the south of France for a semester in college, so she loves it too.
Yeah. So pretty nice.
That's kind of my draw too. So
yeah, that's good. Do you either dance when no one's watching or sing in the shower?
Dance like nobody's watching. Both. Yeah. But I do sing, but I do a lot of whistling, which you know, living with me in the office.
I do know you're a whistler.
A lot of favorite tune. What do you think?
Ooh, your favorite tune to whistle?
Yeah.
Be That My Vision.
Close. Lord of the Rings.
Yes. Very nice. Very nice.
You?
I only dance when people are watching. I dance with Trish in the kitchen sometimes, and everyone gets embarrassed. Or I dance every now and then. I'll dance publicly to embarrass my children, which they enjoy.
That's a great idea.
I do sing in the shower. So, who will win more football games this year, Notre Dame or North Carolina?
Neither.
Will there be football this year? Is
Will
probably
there
a
be
better
football?
better
Yes.
question.
Will we be happy if there's football games? Yes. I mean, Notre Dame, if they play,
Sure. Yeah.
you know, Ian Book coming back. He's not going to win the Heisman, but he's good enough to
Now
get
see,
us some dubs.
I actually think North Carolina has a better quarterback, probably, to be quite honest.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Who's that?
Sam
I don't know
Howell.
this.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
He's already a dark horse, possible future Heisman candidate. But yeah, I mean, Notre Dame's going to win more games. Okay, if you could, now we kind of covered this a little bit in the past, so keep it brief. You can pick a different one. If you could recommend one non-religious book of any kind that has influenced you that you didn't mention last week, what would you pick?
Okay, this is a little bit cheating because it's sort of religious, but Hope Heals. It's a biography of Catherine and Jay Wolfe. Incredible story. I mean,
Hope Heals.
Hope Heals. I'll cry just telling you the story.
Okay.
I'm going to throw in one more since that's sort of religious.
Right.
Last Child in the Woods.
Okay.
And now I'm drawing a blank on his name, on the author, but the gist is that kids need to be outside. And it gets a little sort of maybe too statistical, gets a little lost in those details, but his basic premise is that nowadays we think that our kids are not going to be safe because of the world that we live in if they go outside and they're gone for a couple hours, riding bikes or whatever else. And he's kind of trying to show that the world's no different statistically on that front than it has been.
If anything, it's actually safer, I think.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So anyway.
Okay, so send me those tomorrow, and I'll put them in the Larry Shank requested book list that we haven't sent out yet.
All right.
My book is going to be Gilead by Marilynne Robinson.
Such a good book.
It's beautiful writing. If you haven't read it, Gilead by Marilynne Robinson.
I'm surprised I didn't make my list last week.
I am too. Yeah, I don't know how neither of us mentioned Marilynne Robinson.
Such a good book.
Okay, when you read, do you hear your own voice talking, or do you skim the pages voicelessly?
I'm going to go voicelessly.
Okay.
I feel like when I hear my voice, it's kind of like distracting. So I just kind of read the words without any audible thing going on in my mind.
When I read fiction, I hear my voice more. When I get really focused on like cranking through a theology book, the way I read is very different all around, and I don't hear a voice in there.
Do you have an accent when you read, or is it just like your normal voice?
It's Scottish always.
Okay, that's nice.
Okay, now this is a very specific question. I have an answer, but I know you might too. So feel free to jump in or not. And we want to not give any spoilers. But it's a long question, but it's a great question. I want to ask it. Somebody asks, they say they think Andrew Peterson abandoned one of his best characters, Artham, in the beginning of the fourth Wingfeather saga, and then quite insufficiently wrapped his story up in the final chapter. Do you have any thoughts on that? Or are there any other characters you wish he had developed more or given a different ending to? Do you have any thoughts on that without giving away too much?
I want to hear your answer first.
Okay, it's hard because I can't give away any spoilers. As great as Artham is, I of course want more about him. You want his backstory. You want to know what happens with him and the tree lady. You want to know all of that. But actually, he had to move on from Artham because, see, Artham is playing the same role as Janner, right? Just a generation before. And Artham's not the story. Artham's a supporting character. He's an important one, but the main character is Janner. So I think he had to pull back. And there's more I could say, but it would give away too much of the ending. There's another character that actually technically is in the same slot as Janner and Artham that you got to spend some time with. So I don't begrudge him at all that. But yeah, I mean, you could do. I'd love a 3-part series on Artham's backstory, and he's a pretty rich character. You just don't get the whole story. Do you have any other characters that you thought could be developed better, or that you wanted a lot more about?
No, I kind of agree with that assessment, though. You might want some more detail on John the Baptist too, right? But he's not the savior. So
nice. Hey, ooh, that's good.
No, it's been several years since I've read him, so I'd have to think really hard about what other characters I want. But you turned me on to a book of short stories that have been sort of spun off from that series by other authors.
Yes.
Right.
Wing Feather Tales.
Yes. So I've read a couple of those and enjoyed that.
Have you read The Places Beyond the Maps yet? The last story.
I've not read that one yet.
That is, if it wasn't a short story, it would be one of the best books I've ever read.
Wow.
No, I'm not kidding. It's as good as anything I've ever read. And Julie and I were reading it this week, and it reminded me that I have a theory. I haven't asked, but I think that in the stories, Andrew Peterson is Armullen the Bard. Because he's the storyteller, and he's delighted to be there, and he keeps saying the stories are true, which is a line that Andrew Peterson sings, and it connects to our next question. If you've ever had a celebrity encounter, this is a minor celebrity, but I met Andrew Peterson at an event a while back at RTS, and I had him autograph the 4th book for Caroline, and he wrote, "Dear Caroline, the stories are true. Andrew Peterson." It was awesome.
That's fantastic.
You have a celebrity encounter that you want to tell us about?
Let's see. I have met a few golfers. I've met at a golf event Cody Zeller and Frank the Tank. We had our picture taken with the family, and they're like towering over my children.
Nice.
I met the Bushes, HW, when he visited Elon and W.
Not Billy and Jeb.
Not Billy and Jeb. No.
Wow.
Yeah.
The actual 41 and 43.
Yeah. So, the encounter with W was not that exciting. I was filming him at his inauguration, and he turned around and there was no one between us, and he sort of like winked at the camera. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
My wife, of course, had been to the Oval Office and met him there. So, I mean, she like completely trumps my story.
She does.
Yeah.
And the reason trumps your story.
You like that?
Pun intended.
Pun intended. She had been there because her sister, this is a whole side story, right? Was rescued from an Afghanistan prison, and the whole family got to go to the Oval Office.
That's right.
Story for another day.
That is a story for another day.
Yeah.
I have two other celebrity encounters. They're both medium level athletes. One was Rasheed Wallace, who was a year behind me at UNC, and I tried to convince him to be in a video for me for a Stupid Crusade video one time, and he did not want to. And then somehow at a Campus Crusade Christmas conference, as a guest speaker, as a surprise or something, Rocket Ismail from Notre Dame and Carolina Panther fame showed up, and I shook his hand.
Fantastic. I have lots of Rocket posters all over my treehouse.
Oh, very nice. Okay, so we all know that people are wondering what's going to be different about life after, after coronavirus. And I'm going to give you an over-under on a few things, and you're going to pick a number for me, okay? Number of Cross Park babies born in the next 18 months. I'm going to give you the number, and you give me over or under, okay? 18 months, I'm going to give you 12 is the number. You're going to give me over or under on Cross Park babies.
I'm going to go under.
Okay, I'll take the over. I'm happy with that. I can live with that. Now we have to do this for each of us. Number of pounds gained during quarantine. I'm going to set the over under at 4. So first for you, are we going over or under 4?
I'm going to go under. I'm pretty steady.
I'm going to take the under as well. For me, we'll put the number at 4, but it's pretty tempting to take the over, given I told you I was making things out of bacon fat last week. You want the over or the under? Under on me for 4.
I'm your friend, so I'm going to go under.
Oh, that's really sweet. I haven't weighed myself in a long time, so we'll never know. Okay, let's transition now to some more serious questions. We got a number of questions, people asking some good questions about sort of life at Cross Park, particularly in light of pandemic, right? What's life going to look like? What do we think? So here's a good question. Let's both answer it. What do you think will be different about how we, whether at Cross Park or Church Universal, What would be different about how we do church after the coronavirus? How do you think these months of virtual church will positively and negatively impact worship moving forward?
Hmm. Yeah, I think positively, I think the connectivity could remain, and the ability to just reach out to people this way, FaceTime, Zoom, phone call, text message. Um, I hope it'll promote more of that, and we don't just have to wait till the next time we're together on a Sunday morning to connect. We can connect relationally, even though we're, you know, 6 miles apart from our homes, or we've got different schedules.
Hmm.
I think the other positive is, it, similar, but even as a church, we're leveraging technology, hopefully in a way that we haven't before. I
Hmm.
think, the good that will come out of that is we're not going to go backwards. We're going to leverage technology more as a result of this. Do you want me to answer the negative question too, or
Sure. Yeah, sure.
yeah, I mean, I think the temptation will be to then pull back from community, right? I mean, I think we'll all come out of this and be like, like let's all be together. Um, but I think, I kind of like a lazy Sunday morning, and so maybe I'll just turn on Tim Keller and not go to church, and
Yeah.
I think that would be um, unfortunate if we come out of this and our move is to kind of just embrace a lazy Sunday just for the sake of slowing down, rather than seeing corporate worship as really necessary for our souls.
Yeah, that's good. I think probably many of us, sure, obviously not everyone, but for many people, probably especially in our demographic, people are very busy, over scheduled, right? Our schedules are too tight. And so many of us have experienced some relief from that. And I
Hmm.
think you're right. There is a danger that we'll want to get back to everything we've missed, which then will overload our schedules again. And there's always this, right? So, like anything, there's a desire, I think it's a good desire to learn from whatever has changed, learn from whatever has happened to us. A lot of times, people, right, you realize something, you have an aha moment, and you want to keep it going. But I think, at least in recent history, 9/11 is probably the best analogy. You did see some uptick, certainly in religious interest, spiritual interest, openness for a little while after 9/11. Um,
Absolutely.
but it also didn't last that long, right?
Hmm.
Relatively speaking, what happens is we tend to sort of slip back into some sort of comfortable mode and keep moving forward. So I think, I mean, I've read lots of people discussing this question, right? What's really going to change or not? And of course, nobody knows except the Lord. But I do think that there's probably going to be a window of opportunity on two fronts. One is going to be evangelistically, right, to continue to really engage people
Hmm.
who this has brought up deep, serious questions, life and death questions for them. But then the other issue is also as just individuals, wherever we are spiritually, to make the most of this opportunity, right? To say, I really want to grow and change, and I don't want to just do what I used to do, if that stuff is even possible. Who knows exactly what life will be, but to really not have it be one of those like, I went to a conference and everything's awesome, and within a week or two, it's like nothing ever changed.
Right.
So this is obviously not a fun conference that we're experiencing. Uh, but actually, really high moments and low moments often have similar effects on people, right? Is it kind of clarifies things, it makes them stark, and then
Yep.
you have to figure out how you're going to adjust or not. I do think so. My to the people listening, at least, my encouragement is, yeah, as soon as we're allowed to get back together, it's going to feel awesome, I think. And of course, most of us will rush back into that. But I do think there'll be a temptation once things feel a little more normal to be like, yeah, that lazy Sunday sounds pretty good. And already, right? I mean, American church going is predicated on convenience more than on, I really want to get together with God's people, hear from God's word, worship God. So
Hmm.
I'm hoping and praying that coming out of this will stoke some fires in people in general. But I think also we're going to have to watch ourselves not to want to slip back into something that feels convenient or stay at home. Um,
That's
I
good.
Yeah, I think positively you're right. I mean, I think we can continue to see the benefit of some of the technology. I was telling you, right? Like you can have, although it's not the same thing, and sometimes it's not better, sometimes it's much worse. You can connect with people that maybe they live far from you, or your schedules don't line up, right? So it's really hard to be like, I don't know how we can get together for this interaction. But if you're both at home and can jump on Zoom instantaneously, then you don't have to each drive half an hour to meet or something. I do think there's some opportunities there for us.
Yeah, I mean, over the last 5 weeks, started a study with all my college friends, and we started it during quarantine, and I think that made it. We all live in different states, but this new reality made that doable for everybody. We're like, well, yeah, why not? This is how I do work and how I'm connecting to everybody else. So why not connect with each other? So I
I've
think
seen a
you're
lot
right.
of people, on social media saying they're having regular Zoom calls with their college friends or their friends from when they were, newly married or, whatever, some stage of life that they're not in anymore. And
Hmm.
so I think it's an opportunity for us. Um, okay, I'm going to let you start on this one. I've got a few thoughts too. This is a fun question. What is the difference between a reformed church and a non-reformed church? How could we explain this to a friend or neighbor without using a bunch of Christian terminology? So maybe they say, "What kind of church do you go to?" I go to a Presbyterian church. I don't know anything about that. Well, it's a reform, conservative, reform Presbyterian church. I don't know any of those words, right? So,
Yeah,
what's a way that you would explain what's distinctive or unique about what we're trying to do?
sure. I mean, there's obviously tons of history there. I probably wouldn't get into all that. I might get into a little bit of it,
Yeah,
at least to say, like, I've had people ask me, where's the word reformed come from?
sure.
Just point back to the Reformation.
Yep.
Um, And the nice thing about pointing back to the Reformation is to say that it was a recovery mission for the gospel. The gospel had sort of been obscured to be this, you know, formal way to work your way to God. And that was the understanding. Hey, you just need more religion. You just need more of checking the box, doing the things to make yourself clean,
Mhm.
versus this idea of radical grace, that it was completely the work of God alone. And I think, even taking that a step further, it's this idea of, uh, as Reformed Christians, we don't even believe we can take credit for any of our salvation. Not even down to our heart. To
Yeah.
say that God had to change our heart. Um, so I would say that, and then the other thing I sometimes say is just a big view of God,
Yeah.
which is, in my opinion, just a right reading of the word. Like,
Sure.
what I've appreciated about the Reformed faith, what I found so refreshing when I first read it, or when I first came across it, was people picking up the Bible and reading it with utter, just sort of truthfulness and honesty, to say, well, this is what the Bible says. So we're gonna have to deal with these hard sayings and these hard things that are said, and we're not gonna just kind of explain that away. We're gonna face it honestly, and I think what you walk away from when you do that, is you walk away with a big view of God.
Yeah.
Uh, so
That's good. Yeah, I remember hearing some sermon years ago where it was someone asked some kid, "What does it mean that your church is a Calvinistic or Reformed church?" And his answer was, "It means that God saves us, we don't." And I mean, of course, plenty of Christians would affirm that idea, but I think, yeah, we take very seriously that it's not, we are not about self help or self improvement. That in fact, our whole problem is ourself, and that we live life our own way. And every now and then we connect with some stuff about God, but uh, the gospel is that God has come to show us that life is actually for Him and about Him and from Him and by Him. And that because of that, we have to connect with what He has to say. So for a Reformed or Presbyterian church, right, the Word of God is really central. The Bible's central in everything we do, because as I said in my Easter sermon, even I keep quoting myself, um, we're all in a story, and the real question is we want to figure out, how does my story connect with God's story? And historically, Reformed churches say, yeah, God's story is the story, it's the biggest story. He actually runs the story. He's the author and the perfecter of the story, and that's true for His story and your story. And so even as you point out, even to save yourself or to make a decision for Jesus, all of that is wonderfully and mysteriously part of God being the author of our story. So
Mhm.
I think I'd start with, it's not self-help, it's not self-improvement. We don't save ourselves. So we're going to be really honest about how far from God we are on our own, and really excited about how God is powerful, in control, and wants to lovingly bring you back into a relationship with himself.
Yeah, I really like that. You're what you just said there reminded me of. I mean, one of the first things I heard from, and he was from a non-reformed guy, that was that God's most concerned with his own glory, like more concerned than he is with your glory. And then I found the Reformed church that sort of that was at the center of what they were talking about. God, everything exists for God's glory,
Yeah.
and our chief end is to glorify Him. So, yeah, that's a good.
Yeah, we want to, you can say it, we want to relentlessly center everything on God himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he has centered everything on the person and work of Jesus. So we come to Jesus so that we understand who God really is. Okay, so this was a question that said, kidding, not kidding, with some kind of funny smiley face there. What do you think of virtual baptism? Why or why not? Why or why not?
Yeah, no.
That's what I wrote down.
Because I think the sacraments are derivative of the word preached, and they happen in the context of the local church and in the context of corporate worship. And I think it's a little confusing right now, because we naturally conclude that what we're doing right now is our normal Sunday morning corporate worship. We just all happen to be in our own homes. I think it's helpful to make a little distinction there, to say,
I agree.
Yeah, this virtual thing is not the same. I mean, you and I have said that on here before. There's a distinction to be made. It really, what we're doing is more closely associated with family worship, or if you're by yourself, you're worshiping God alone. Now it's significant that we're all doing it on Sunday morning, and that feels good, and there's connectivity there, and that's fantastic. But it's not the same. It's not a corporate worship service.
Yeah.
So
I think a couple other things to fill that in with my answer. So one thing we say sometimes is that the word explains the sacraments and the sacraments illustrate the word, right? So we talk, we explain, and then we have the sacraments which illustrate what we're talking about, right? So we talk about the gospel and we show people the gospel in these two sacraments. And so in our tradition, we talk about the sacraments being sensible signs, because they are, meaning they involve your senses, right? Beyond just hearing. Touch, taste, smell, even with eating, even in our case, right? We have people stand up to go get the food. And so for baptism, I mean, part of it is, how could we baptize? I can't put water on somebody from here.
mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously you could say, well, hey, Jeff could drive over to someone's house and put water on somebody. To me, because this clearly is an odd and unique temporary situation, right? We miss the sacraments. So this even goes back to our question last time about the Lord's Supper. We do miss the sacraments. Of course, we want to properly participate in them, but we don't absolutely need them in the short term, right? The Bible doesn't tell you how often. I mean, the baptism is once. And because our theology says your baptism doesn't save you based on, it has to line up with the date of your belief or something, right? Because we see people get baptized before we know they believe and after, in both cases. Baptism doesn't have to happen right now. And even the Lord's Supper doesn't have to happen right now. We can wait on it and wait on what the Lord's going to do there. Okay, next question. Give me a short answer to this one. Can someone interview and become a member during this time? Why or why not?
I mean, I'd say they could interview, yes, via this technology, but join, again, we're not having a corporate worship service, so that would have to wait.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Because we think taking vows, becoming a member is really important. You do it in the service.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't think church membership saves people, so
correct.
It's really important. We think it's really good to pledge yourself to the church and connect, but it's not on the same level as your salvation and putting your faith in Christ. So
yep. Okay, somebody asked, they gave an example during the dot-com bust in the 2000s. Their church was very careful in trying to cut back on some expenses. what have you and I talked even yesterday about some of this? What are we doing to try to be wise stewards of an uncertain financial situation?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We were talking about this, what can we cut that we don't need right now? And we've already done some of that.
Yep.
And of course we're not paying rent. That's the advantage of week to week rent and being in a school. They're not charging us. So that's a big savings. It's not huge, but it's pretty significant for our budget.
Yeah. Well, and the finance team rightly have a variety of levers, right, that you can pull if certain things get tight. So the finance team's always watching metaphorical levers, of course, but they've got, benchmarks that if we hit them or don't hit them, it causes us to move into different modes. So we already have this way of thinking that if we need to cut back, we can. And they're great. The finance team is really good with the deacons about saying, where are we? And so I know that's a conversation that even the deacons are having. So in the same vein, then let's talk about our facility stuff for a minute. We obviously don't have a place and everyone knows we've been looking, but we don't have any real new information on that. Everything's kind of on pause. So someone said this present crisis reminds us that we shouldn't cling to or hoard the temporal, but instead store up treasures in heaven. Has this in any way affected our facility search? Has it caused us to adjust how we're thinking about it all? What do you think?
I think the adjustment in thinking is, I think this has probably made us all realize what the church is. The church is the body of believers. And it's interesting, whether you have a building or not right now, everybody is on the same level playing field. The church hasn't gone away, and we don't need a facility to be the church. So I think that's the good reminder for all of us.
That's good.
And I think as in terms of our facility search, it hasn't changed. We're still looking with the same aggressiveness. And I mean, my hope is, while the downturn in the economy is unfortunate, hopefully the money that we've raised will go a little further. I think maybe some new opportunities will open up. You and I have even talked about some of that recently. So I think we continue to look aggressively because we believe that a facility is not, there for a comfort. The main reason we want a more permanent facility is ministry effectiveness.
Yep. It'll help us do what God's calling us to do. And there are pros and cons to having a facility and not having a facility, right? So I was emailing with some of our friends at Christ Covenant, and they have a great facility that they've been very generous with, but they're not sure what to do either, to your point. How do you they have a great sanctuary, but how do you get people in 6 feet apart and all that stuff? So we're all in the same boat on that one. Okay, so everyone knows CMS is closed for the school year, and Smithfield is a CMS facility. We all know that. So people are asking, what does that mean? It does mean that we won't have the building through the school year, as far as we know. So we reached out to CMS this week. Aaron emailed them. Basically, they said, we don't have any new information on what it will mean for the summer, but it sounds like, we're definitely out for the school year, of course, because it's not that much longer. So then the follow-up question that this person asked was, what is church going to look like as we start to ease back in? So we have talked about this, I guess it was last week at our session meeting. So here's a couple things. For phase one, right? So hopefully starting next week, end of next week. For phase one, it looks like the numbers are still going to be, even though there's some relaxing, it's still going to be 10 or less people in any space. So starting with phase one, we are going to encourage you. We're not going to organize this, but we'll encourage you to get together. Have another family or a few couples over, depending on what your family size is, as long as you keep it under 10 and follow whatever directions they give you. You can have people over on a Sunday and watch the service together and participate and sing. Phase two is where it gets a little more interesting, right? Because we don't have numbers yet for where they're going to cap religious gatherings, but they've said explicitly, hey, we want worship gatherings to happen. We're going to expand them more than 10, but we don't know how much more. I'm guessing it's going to be, it's not going to be 300. That'll probably be 50 or 100 or some number like that. So what we're planning to do, and we're going to organize this, and we'll let you know more as we get closer there, which sounds like it's more likely to be in June, maybe sometime early June, we hope, is that we're going to try to have Cross Park people volunteer their houses to host a limited number of people, whatever that number is, less than the number North Carolina gives us, and a number that obviously will fit appropriately in your house. And so we will organize several places, and we'll encourage people. We'll have Sign Up Genius. People can write, we're going to sign up to go to Jordan's house today. We're going to sign to go to Dan's house today, et cetera. And I think that'll be a really sweet time for us to see some of our friends and start reconnecting again. And then phase 3, we just don't know, because again, they said they're planning to further expand the number of people that can be at a gathering, but we don't yet know what that's going to be. So in the meantime, we're going to continue doing what we're doing because we think it's fairly flexible, but we are doing something different this week. So this Sunday, we're going to have a church-wide Zoom call after the service, so to speak. Obviously, you can watch the service at whatever time works for your family. But at 11:45, I'm going to send out a Zoom call info. There's not going to be any content, meaning, Jordan and I won't be talking to you and preaching or anything, but watch the service, and then we're going to get on. I think we've got up to 100 computers that can be on the Zoom call. So we ask you to get on as families, not as everyone in your family on a separate computer. And we're going to get on the Zoom call, and we'll sort of say hi, and it'll be fun to see faces. And then I'm going to send everyone to random breakout rooms, which is a feature on Zoom if you didn't know that. And we'll put you in a room with 2 or 3 other families maybe, and y'all can connect, see how everyone's doing, and pray for each other a little bit. So that's kind of our goal. It's not going to be a big, heavy content thing. We'll get on, we'll all wave at each other, you'll see your friends, and then we'll send you to these breakout rooms via Zoom so you can connect for, 30, 40 minutes with some other people. So we haven't done that yet for a variety of reasons. We've chosen to not do a live service because of possible tech glitches, right? Live is great when it works. It's terrible when it locks up on our end or on the receiver's end. So we've chosen to pre-produce on Saturday the little service, but this Zoom call will be another opportunity to connect with people. Do you have any other thoughts on how to think?
Great.
Okay, good. Well, I'm looking at our time. We're getting tight here towards the end. I want to keep it at about an hour. All right, I'm going to ask you, I've got 2 more questions for you, and then we're going to have Aaron get on with us. And tell us the present crisis. Oh, nope, that's the wrong page. Sorry. Hey, well, here it is. What is something you've learned about yourself in lockdown?
I'm my own biggest problem.
Hey, isn't that true?
Things I already knew, but with just, I think the pace that we go at, we tend to think that we've moved past certain struggles and things like that. And, we're told that to be careful, that there's no temptation, right? That we've kind of gotten past, that there's always that temptation there. And some of those sins, even if they're latent in our heart, are still there. Yeah. And so just kind of being all cooped up together, everybody under one roof. I like to blame whatever circumstances or whatever else, but I have alluded to some of this in my sermons, right? But and I heard Paul Tripp say it in the parenting conference, which by the way has been great. So glad we subscribed to that.
Yeah, that was a good move.
That's kind of what he said. He was making the point about the kids, like your kid's biggest problem is their own heart. And I'd say that's what I've seen to be true of myself. So I think at the end of the day, what have I learned? I need Jesus just as much now as I ever have. So
good. Well, that's a great answer. I had some similar thoughts, but I think a couple things. I mean, I think I thought I had tried to live a better pace than the world around me, but I don't think that was true. I realized right in the early days and weeks of the lockdown how terribly sleep deprived I was. And for a variety of reasons, it's not just sleep, right? It's the stress of the way I function and the way I do business. And like you said, oftentimes I think, even though we know better, I think, well, my circumstances are my problem, right? And so part of what this has reminded me is a little different. I mean, some of the same stuff, of course, but that life is always risky and uncertain. That like normal life, we think means I'm under control. I know what's going to happen next. Things are going to more or less follow the plan that I have. And some of that I think is a result of being middle-class privileged people, right? Who middle class, upper middle class, whatever we are, we're not wondering where our next meal is going to come from. typically. And so it's easy to think that somehow the world is smooth and easy and we've got it all figured out. And I think what has been so striking to me about this is I can't even figure out what to make of the whole thing, right? Again, I've told you, one day you think it's an overreaction, one day you think it's an underreaction, and nobody knows. But that's always true. Nobody knows. Like,
yes,
nobody knows as much as we think we do, except for the Lord. The Lord knows, but the rest of us don't. And I think this is good.
Yeah, which is so countercultural, right? Especially when you have a news media that comes to you with just utter confidence of they kind of report in such a way that they know everything with absolute confidence. But you're right.
Yeah.
I often look at these stories and think, well, you don't know. We don't know. Yeah.
We really don't, right? And that's actually freeing. It can feel frustrating to people. But it's actually completely freeing that we don't know. Because the Lord knows and we don't have to figure it out. Okay, I've got one more big question for you. If you could go back to your 30-year-old self, which isn't that long ago for you, if you could go back to your 30-year-old self, or you could pick an earlier age. Yeah, I know. What piece of advice would you give your 30-year-old self?
I think I would tell my 30-year-old self, or younger, to embrace my identity. And what I mean by that is my identity in Christ, right? So, I think one of the things that I've been struggled with through the years is just approval, right? If you want to pick one of those 4 main idols of the heart, approval, but to be able to say, this is who you are in Christ, and so the rest doesn't matter. But the other side of that coin is that you've been made as a unique individual with a personality that God wants to bring out of you. And so I think at times even then I was kind of still trying to figure out, well, who am I? And so it kind of goes in both directions. It goes in, I am in Christ, and that is what defines me, but I don't need to be afraid of embracing the fullness of my personality and the humanity that God's made, and wanting to be sanctified in that, right? Not thinking that just because I'm this way is okay, but so
that's good. So I think my 30-year-old self, I was very restless. Particularly what I mean by that was I was kind of obsessed with what am I going to do when I really grow up? And every now and then I still joke, right? I wonder what a real pastor would be doing today. Or, who knows what either of us will be doing 10 years from now. It may be this, right? Very well, maybe, but we don't know. But I was really obsessed with, I got to figure out what I'm really going to do next, right? And so I hadn't finished seminary yet at 30. I was working for Campus Crusade, enjoyed my job, but I was really, especially heading up to 30, I had been super restless and I was always thinking about what do I do next? What do I do next? What do I do next? And what that really did was it short-circuited my ability to do whatever God wanted me to do now and to have my eyes open to whatever he might be doing. Some of the quieter, more subtle things that he might be doing in my life or in the people around me, because I was so self-obsessed with what am I going to do next? And some of that's just the nature of the age. In your 20s, you are trying to figure that stuff out. But I think you can do it in a way that is much calmer. So I would tell myself at 30, I would say, you need to be less restless. You need to let your heart settle down a little bit. The Lord will figure out where you need to go long term. You're never, it's always day to day to some extent. And so just like dig in to wherever God has called you. And actually right about 30, I realized that I was having a problem with that. And I committed to a particular job, my last job with Crusade, I committed to for a minimum of 3 years. And that really helped. I just and now looking back, I'd have told myself, it's because you're so restless that you can't settle down. You need to actually settle your heart, not just your job commitment, but you need to be a less restless person. Okay, I just got a message from Erin. Her internet is not working, so she's not going to join us, but we're going to do the giveaway in a minute. I've got one more question for you. Do you have a favorite book of the Bible and why? And then we'll say who's won our prizes.
I have a favorite chapter.
Okay, great.
Preaching through it, Romans 8.
Hey, look at that.
But if I had to pick a whole book, I'd probably go with Ephesians. I
Okay,
just
why?
love how it starts with this incredibly heady theology, kind of looking into the will of God from before all eternity in chapter 1. But it shows that theology is utterly practical. Right? All theology is practical, and it has a bearing on your life as a Christian and your life in the church. Ephesians is great on life in the church. So I love it.
It's good. That's a great answer. Yeah, I'd pick the Psalms. I know that's not a big surprise to you, or probably to anyone at Cross Park who's been around recently. Yeah, it's theologically rich. It's emotionally rich. Calvin called it the anatomy of the soul. That the whole, everything in there, right? Joy, anger, despair, delight, glory, questioning. It's all in there. And so it's actually, I think, designed, right, to help our souls become more like Christ. And so, yeah, I love the Psalms, as you know. Okay, guys, it's 8:00. So we've got a couple prizes to give out. Jordan and I, right before we went live, picked our favorite questions because we did see these ahead of time. So Jordan, what was your favorite question? You gave it to me earlier tonight.
Yeah, I like the what would you tell yourself at age 30? I think that's
okay, great. What would you tell yourself at age 30 was Steph Robnett. So Stephanie,
nice.
Thank you very much for that question. We'll tell you what you won in just a moment.
Great favorite question.
It was a great one. My favorite question was, if you could relive 1 year of your life again with no changes, what year would it be and why? That was from the Ashworths. Jake and Hannah, and Adeline, I suppose, may have contributed in some way. The Ashworths sent in enough questions that almost statistically, it was likely that they were going to get one of these. I'm just kidding. Thank you so much. Really great questions, from everybody. So both of y'all, the Robnetts and the Ashworths, have won a $25 gift card to Target. I believe it may be delivered. It may be delivered to you even in a Cross Park mug, is my understanding. So thank you to everyone who sent in a question. We're sorry we couldn't get to all the questions. There were a couple really good ones we just didn't get to tonight, but we appreciate you joining us. I've got a couple quick announcements before we leave. The big one is this Sunday, you'll get the info from us, all church Zoom call at 11:45. So whether you're in your pajamas or not, whether you finish watching the service or not, join us at 11:45 and connect with some of your friends. Continue to watch this YouTube page, continue to check your emails for regular updates from us. And tentatively, Jordan, I think next Thursday, we're going to try another one of these. And instead of a mailbag show, we're going to do an interview show.
Okay.
So I'm not sure who we're going to interview yet. I've got some ideas, but I don't have our guests confirmed yet. So we're hoping to maybe interview a missionary or two, maybe a former intern, maybe a Cross Park member or two. We'll be working on that between now and then. But Jordan, thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah, man, this was fun.
It is. Cross Park, thanks for joining us. We really enjoyed being with you again briefly. We are looking forward to being all together, but until we can be all together, we'll continue to crank out some digital content for you both during the week and on Sunday mornings. We love you guys. Have a great night. We'll see you soon.
Love you guys.
Take care.
Bye.